Hello and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to yet another session of inspiring conversation where you will have to tolerate my voice. I lost my voice last week and I'm having trouble getting it back. But okay, I sound like Rod Stewart, but that's fine. So today we have a magnificent guest, but let's go through why we are doing this. So, inspiring conversation is all about creating conversations that really matter. We are diving into ways to connect deeply, break down barriers, and build moments that inspire trust and growth, whether it's with your team, at work, or in your everyday chats. We will bring more positivity, realness, and impact into every conversation. And as always, I am streaming live from Iceland, from my hometown at Kópavogur, and I live on the right side of the picture, near the ocean. So, and I just want to go through that. If you want to be with us, then you can find inspiring conversations on YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn, Facebook. And if you are having trouble, just use Dr. Google or Mr. Bing. Bing, 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 bing. And you are most welcome to ask questions while we are live, because that is one of the good part of this stream, to have live questions from the audience. But my guest today is a guy who is writing a book, or he's waiting for his book to be published. It was supposed to come out this spring, but he will probably say us what happened, and it will be in the fall, and it is called Living Your Best Audacious Life Ever: How Unleashing Your Inner Greatness Can Change the World. And I give to you, my esteemed guests, my guest today, Audley Audacious Stephenson.
Greetings from Toronto, Canada. How are you, my friend?
Well, hit me with your best shot. Not only did you not show up until on the minute I had pressed live, I was just like, oh, he must be joking. So, but you're tech savvy, so you're here, and I'm happy. And I was so certain that you would be in a red shirt. So I don't know why.
Yeah, why? That's a good question.
Yeah, why? Like I thought we Icelandic Canadian connection. What is happening? Why?
Well,
Like, didn't you sense?
I get it. I get it. And usually we are. So, but you're not going to bat 1,000 all the time. So we miss. I
Mm,
dropped the ball. Clearly, I dropped the ball.
yeah. So welcome.
Thank
We
you.
are going to have a good hour of talking about what does it actually take to be bold inside a life that was not designed for it. That is the topic.
Sure.
But if we move to the left, move to the right, then it's okay. But
Sure.
because we are going to talk a lot and whatnot, because you have been busy the last 30 years or so, isn't it?
A little bit. A little bit. I
A
find a way
little
to,
bit.
to fill up my space and time.
Yes, take your place and be bold. But because we're talking about audaciousness, is that correct?
That is
And
absolutely correct.
yeah, and for people who don't have English as their first language, I of course Google it. What is the meaning with audacious? And audacious is an adjective that means showing a bold, fearless willingness to take risks or challenge conventions. It often describes someone who is highly willing to take risks, challenge conventions, or show a bold disregard for the status quo. So that is you for the last 30 years? Or
Well, it's interesting, and while I appreciate the definition, it still leaves a little bit to be desired because what I've discovered through my work over the last number of years that it's much deeper than these definitions will provide us because, and that's where all my work is really centered around about the difference audacity can make. And the way I equate it is, so for example, life is like a big racetrack. And so if life is a racetrack, then we are all cars on this racetrack. Audacity is the engine inside of our cars. So audacity is that thing that makes us drive, makes us push forward. It determines how fast we go. That's our audacity. And if I provide another sort of illustration, I think of a baby learning how to walk, one of the cutest things on the planet, right? And if you think about a baby, they'll get up and they'll wobble a bit and they'll fall down, but they'll find the nerve to get back up again. They'll take a couple more steps and they'll fall. That's audacity in action. And so certainly boldness is a big part of it. I would also add the word courageousness, because courageous, you've got to demonstrate courage to step into yourself, to get up and move forward. And the other piece I'll add is it really is about getting outside of your comfort zone. We all have spaces that we're comfortable in, that we operate in, and you've got to be to make that audacious step. Is you're coming out of that comfort zone to go into new things, to try something, to take the risk that you described earlier.
So because we have to also get to know Audley Stephenson.
Sure. Yeah.
So David Pushkin, a good friend of mine in the UK, he says, "Hi, Hedden, aka Mayor of Happiness, and nice to virtually meet you, Audley. Looking forward to this encouraging and inspiring conversation." And then we have Christy Williams. She says, "Hello, friends from Florida."
Oh, hi, Christy. Weather's nice, I'm sure.
Why? Okay, thank you. This was a short conversation. Why are you talking about the weather? I'm like I am so up north. Like it's maybe 10 degrees Celsius.
You know what? We're just starting to see it come out of the snow. We had snow a couple weeks ago, and it was a long winter for us. And so yes, it's natural to talk about the weather. Here, I don't know if you know, but here in the Toronto, especially Toronto, Ontario, we have beautiful summers. The weather is so beautiful. It just takes a long time to get there. So when we get there, we're quite excited. So that's why the weather came up.
I gather it's just either or. Either it's minus 50 degrees or it's plus 50 degrees. So that is just like the Canadian way. Either or.
You're a lot closer than you realize, yes.
But welcome people to this session who are on Christy, rub it in, why don't you? Very nice here.
Thanks,
subtle, but nice.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you.
Oh, well, now you are in the good books, Christy. Sending you some sun. Thank you very much. So, Audley, we need to, as I mentioned, you have been in this business. Well, you have been practicing audacity or audacious or getting into the groove or however we talk about it. You have been challenging people or what for 30 years or so. So what led you to this word or this concept?
So here's what I'll sort of give you a little bit of the history and what you'll soon realize. And not only is it a case for my story, but it'll be a case for every single one of us, that spirit of audacity was always there. It just needed to be awoken. And so when I talk about awareness and self-awareness, I equate it to that very much of a living room. So in your living room, you've got your coffee table, your couch, your TV, right? And if you were to turn off that light, those items aren't visible. But when you turn them back on, they're now there. And now you can see what's in front of you. And that's kind of equate a self-awareness to. So for me, audacity was always there. I just didn't realize it. And it wasn't until I started to look back at my life and choices I made and decisions, I'm like, oh my gosh. And that's when the awakening took place for me. And I'm going to take it back. It was back in 2008. And so we'll get a little bit of history. In 2008, I had aspirations of being a sports broadcaster. Okay, I love the game of basketball, and I wanted to work in sports. So here in Toronto, Canada, there was a sports channel called The Score. It was 24 hours. And I said, this is where I gotta be. So I applied and had an internship there, and I worked there. And my plan was after this internship ended, they would take me because I'd be a great sports broadcaster and I'd work in my dream job. Well, the end of the internship, it came and went. The internship ended. They thank me very much, Audley Stephenson. Thank you for being here. I got the golden handshake, and that was it. Nothing else. That was it. And I walked away going, oh, that was a colossal failure. Like, my plan didn't work out. I didn't become the sports broadcaster I thought I would. And, I sort of like, okay, ho hum, and I said, let me move on to the next thing. Now, although, I thought it was a failure and a mistake, but it actually truly wasn't, because one of the things there's several things that happened there that helped equip me. I was able to, be in a sports environment, to understand the broadcasting industry. There's things I picked up that I didn't know in the moment. The other thing that took place is I met a gentleman by the name of Dave Mendonca. Dave Mendonca was one of those on-air sports reporters who I was aspiring to be, where I wanted to be. And Dave and I were able to connect very quickly because we both shared a common love for the game of basketball. We're big NBA fans. And so to put it in context, at that time, we're talking 2008. This is before the Raptors had won a championship. They were just there. They weren't drawing a whole lot. And we're in a hockey country, so hockey comes first. So to find your kindred spirit, that's someone that loves basketball, we just naturally got along. And so we became friends. I left The Score. About a year later, we reconnected on Facebook, of all places. And we started, hey, what are you doing, catching up back and forth? And through that conversation, we got into basketball again. And through that conversation, we started talking about, we talked about this thing that we heard of called podcasting, right? I had never heard of it before. It was brand new to both of us. And we said, hey, let's check this thing out. And we did. And we thought, hey, I got a great idea. Let's start a podcast dedicated to NBA basketball. Wouldn't that be cool?
Uh-huh.
And so that's exactly what we did. We started this podcast, and we kind of had this notoriety because we were kind of like the odd couple. Here's this big, bald, tall, black guy and a short little white Portuguese guy, right? And we were just bantering back and forth. Well, the show ran it for 5 years, but one of the coolest things that came out, many cool things came out, but one of the coolest things that came out of that experience is that the Toronto Raptors actually gave us credentials. So now we're in the locker room interviewing NBA players. As a giddy basketball fan, I'm on cloud 10. Like, that's just the ultimate. So next thing you know, I'm interviewing LeBron James and Kobe Bryant and Kevin Garnett and the biggest names of basketball. I'm right there with them. And so it was such a thrill. And so that podcast, we were doing our thing, and we had just all sorts of basketball players come on. Like I said, we were in the locker room. Life was great. And then in 2011, this thing called a lockout took place. So lockout means that there's no basketball. The players and the teams were in wage negotiations. So they had a lockout, which meant there was no basketball. I was shocked because I'm like, no, what do we do now? And I want to put in context for you. If we had a lockout now, because of social media and all sorts of information, it's easy to get data. You can find out what color the players' shoelaces are today. Back then, it wasn't that way, right? It was very, very different. And so I'm like, what are we going to do now? And at that same time, there was a league that was starting up here in Canada called NBL Canada. And it was a National Basketball League of Canada. And I said, well, since there's no NBA, maybe I will pivot and work with the NBL. And of course, the NBL will love me because I've got all this NBA backing. I've got this, it's out there, notoriety. I'm an expert, and it worked. The NBL Canada took me on. I started working with them in the capacity of interviewer and podcaster. And as time had gone on, I started to do more roles with them. I got in the front office. And next thing you know, in my 5th year of the organization, I was named to the commissioner of this league. So now I'm managing and running this league that I started off as a podcaster and interviewer, and life was great. I thought the NBA podcast was great. Now I'm a commissioner of basketball. It gets even better. And so life is fantastic. and things are moving along nicely. I'm feeling good about myself. And then, of course, we run into this thing in 2020 called the pandemic. Everything stops. I don't need to go in great deals to what the impact was and what it meant. We all experienced it at the exact same time. I literally was in this state of depression because I had this sense of loss. And I'll never forget this. I'm talking to a friend of mine one day, and I said, and I just remember I just didn't feel great. I felt lethargic. I didn't feel good about myself. And I remember saying to a friend of mine, ever since I lost basketball, and the moment those words came out of my mouth, because up until that point, I didn't know what the problem was, right? Well, when those words came out of my mouth, I'm like, that's it. I don't have basketball. So now I know what the problem is. I'll just replace it with something else. Okay. Podcasting. I've got lots of experience. I can go back to that. I know it's been a while since I've done it, but I can go back to podcasting. And then it was like, well, what do you want to podcast about? And I didn't want to do basketball again. I wanted to do something that mattered to me, that was important, that was significant. And it was at that point I did a snapshot of my life, and I looked back. I looked at all my major accomplishments, my wins, my victories, my successes, and I found this red thread of audacity existed. If I didn't have the audacity to blindly approach the score, I would never have met Dave. If Dave and I didn't have the audacity to say, let's start this podcast, and it was a new thing that no one ever heard of, that wouldn't have happened. If we didn't have the audacity to approach the Toronto Raptors and say, we need to interview your players, I wouldn't have been in the locker room. If I didn't have the audacity to say to NBL Canada, I need to be here and reporting and working and helping you grow your brand, I wouldn't have been commissioner. So it was clear that audacity was always there, but I wasn't awoken to it. And so that it was at that point I said, I wanted to start a podcast focused on audacious living. And so I started the Audacious Living podcast, and it was December 9th of 2020. And since that date, I've had over 650 episodes about this thing called audacity, why it's important to us, and why every single one of us needs to tap into it. And so that's the backstory. And there's so much that's gone on, but I wanted to kind of give you the abridged version to help you better understand kind of where I come from in all this.
But David Pushkin, he asked, like, before you started giving the backstory, like he asked, like, what is the fuel for audacity or audacious living, but then he asked again, like, or he says, there is opportunity to build when dealing with loss and failure, but
Yes.
As I am not a man who wants to focus on failure, because if we fail, then we learn, and then we build upon that. So how is it that, like for me, listening to you and your fire, like, I want to do this. This is something that you're passionate and stuff, and you figure out a way, and then you meet the right people also. Like, but how isn't this audacious? Isn't it just another name for something else, or like, because 650 podcasts about the same word? Like,
So
sorry, pardon my French, but God
no.
damn.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason why I'm able to have 650 episodes, because audacity truly is everywhere. It exists in every single part of our life. It exists, right? The question about the fuel for audacity, it's the inner belief. You've got to believe within yourself that this thing that I'm after, it's attainable. Because if you don't believe it, you're not going to take that first step. And that's what audacity is, about taking that first step. Martin Luther King Jr. has a quote about, taking that first step when you can't see the entire staircase. We don't know what the outcome will be. We don't know what our efforts are going to produce. We don't know what the end result is going to be, but we still take that step anyways, and trust in that inner belief, trust in ourselves, have the confidence, have the courage to move forward. And so that to me is really, those are key aspects of being audacious. And then what happens, as you start, it naturally becomes a part of who you are, and you naturally do, and you see you see challenges as opportunities. I love your framing about failure, because it actually is an acronym: first attempt in learning. That's what fails means. And I actually believe I have what I call the fail forward advantage, right? I treat failure as an advantage, because any opportunity, anything that you try and it doesn't work out, there's a lesson that can be learned that you can take from that to apply to get better. And that's why I oftentimes say that you a failure isn't truly a failure unless you walk away from the experience without the lesson. So the lesson is the key. And if you don't take the lesson, you're doomed to repeat that failure again.
And what kind of people are you talking to? Are you are you alone in these podcasts, or do you invite guests? Because for me, it is, because when we are talking about this word, and somehow it's trying to focus on things, and I'm trying to think about how was it when I was in school, and did they teach me this or that? Because
No.
this is another, because I wrote audacity first and got
Yeah.
a definition of that, and it
Mhm.
refers to a bold, daring confidence. But it says, as you mentioned, courageous. It can describe courageous, risk-taking behavior, or more negatively, a shocking and disrespectful disregard for rules, politeness, or social norms, often referred to as having the nerve to do something. So is it, because when you think about that definition,
Mhm.
then I think about, I'm challenging the system.
There are
But
absolutely, yeah.
and that is external, because you are taking it more internal.
What I'm doing is attributing it to a life philosophy, and
Yeah.
I oftentimes will talk about there are myths of audacity, there's three specifically myths of audacity I talk about. One, first and foremost, that some people seem to think that audacity is reserved for select individuals. So if you're not an elite athlete or a CEO of a company or holding a high position, then you can't be audacious because you're not making big decisions. And absolutely, you can be audacious. It's not reserved for. And I gave you the example of the baby. If a baby has audacity in them, that means we all have it. So it's not just reserved for select individuals. The other myth that I oftentimes will talk about is that people seem to think that unless I'm climbing Mount Everest, unless I'm fighting alligators in the swamps in Florida, that was for Christy, fighting alligators in the swamps in Florida, or I'm skydiving from planes, that I'm not being audacious. I'm here to say audacity isn't just for big acts. It can be very small things. Speaking up and using your voice in a room that maybe it's not encouraged. I think of a single mother who, maybe she's looking after kids and she needs that time for herself, and she steps away and focuses on self-care. That's an audacious act. So they don't have to be big things. They can be quite small, anything out of your comfort zone. And then lastly, and it was in one of the definitions that you shared, it talks about that it's reckless. And audacity is reckless. And in fact, the audacity can be very measured and planned. And so, for example, I had a friend of mine. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, she went to school to study corporate accounting, and she wanted to be in the corporate space as an accountant. She went to school for many years there, got her designation, she got a job, and wasn't happy with it. She got there and realized it doesn't give her any joy, it doesn't give her any passion, it doesn't give her any excitement. And she was telling me about a story she had heard about someone else who also did a very similar thing. But that person, when they realized that corporate accounting wasn't their passion, they pivoted and went into the small business, not-for-profit space, and found lots of joy and lots of satisfaction and lots of fulfillment. Well, that switch that pivot could be seen as very audacious. And it doesn't have to be reckless. So you don't have to get up tomorrow and go, I'm quitting my job and I'm gone, right? You can start that process where you do the appropriate research. You can maybe set up information interviews. You can, upgrade your own skills to ensure that you're the right fit for where you want to go. those are audacious acts. And so it doesn't have to be reckless. It doesn't have to be disregarding the rules. It can be very measured. It can be very planned. It can be very focused.
So now, because there is like people in India watching this, and Sugant, I am sorry again. I will learn it. Like if you call me and say my name, I will probably I can say your name.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's horrible sometimes. Like how you're just like, yeah. But he says a certain level of audacity is the key for human evolution.
It is. It is.
That's a big
Absolutely.
stuff. And
Huge.
that push outside our comfort zone,
Yep.
the acceptance to change, the willingness to think and execute outside our box. Several of the technological leaps we witnessed over the years is due to the audacity of
Yeah.
its pioneers.
That's right. That's right. And so, when I hear that, person that comes to mind right away is Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
The iPhone did not exist if it was not for Steve Jobs, and it's revolutionized our society. And so you think about the idea of being audacious. It's going off the beaten path, right?
Yeah.
It's not following the norm, coming out of the comfort zone, doing something different, right? That is very much an audacious act.
And the same with Edison, like when he found, like when he made the like trial and error, like
That's right.
how many times?
3,000, they say. I don't know if he's. I don't know. I always wonder how accurate true that number is, but they say 3,000. I'm going with it.
So, but like you, this is your passion. So, do you talk about this? Do you visit schools? Do you talk to
I
kids?
do.
And
I
because
do.
this, I know that, and I concur with your definition of it. And but I think I have fallen into the pitfall of thinking about, yeah, now I will ask this question and I will challenge the system. I will give them hell. I will raise hell. So, but I have never thought about it in terms of myself. Like I didn't know that when I quit my job in
Right.
2020, after 12 years of being a chief finance officer in a leisure center, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore.
That's
I
right.
didn't know that it was audacity
Absolutely.
to be
Good for you. Congratulations. Because how many people stay in those situations unhappy, unfulfilled, and miserable, right?
oh
And
yeah,
so to be able to fight through that and say, okay, this isn't for me. There's more for me. I have to go. So
yeah.
congratulations. You really, I mean that truly.
And that was also like you get free because I
Yes,
was challenged in
that's
December
right.
2019 in a chief happiness officer academy. And when I came home, it was my wife stopped me at the airport and said, "Time out." And I was just like, "What? Are you in a cult now?" Because I was just like, "Yeah." And then we have this and that and I was so on fire, but I
Yes,
didn't know how to. But maybe quitting my job was the step I had to take
that's
to,
right.
but
And
why
let, and
is
let,
it
I,
that?
want, I want,
Yeah,
I want, I want to go on this for a second. And so, in that moment, before you made that final decision, I bet you had butterflies in your stomach. I bet you were nervous. I bet you're
well,
uncertain.
you are so polite. I was on the verge of shitting myself. So let's just talk it as it is. Like
Sure.
I was just like shaking, and I was like,
Yes,
what
yes,
will happen? But when
yes.
I handed, then it was the sense of relief.
That's right.
I did.
That's right.
And
You
then came
felt the
COVID.
yeah.
Yeah, then
That's
came
right.
COVID. Then came
That's right.
COVID, and
Yeah.
my boss offered me to take it back several times, but I said just nope. I just have to stay true to myself. I have taken this
Yeah. It's the whole
decision,
idea.
so I am
I
sticking.
was gonna say it's the whole idea of feeling the fear and still doing it anyway.
Yeah. But I did not know that 6 years later I would be looking for a job and just getting no's everywhere because, believe it or not, I am
Mhm.
29 plus with 30 years of experience. And people are just, doesn't want to hire this beauty you are looking at?
I don't know. I don't know. What's
Well,
wrong?
the company here in Iceland, they don't want me because I'm too old.
Ah, that's unfortunate. Was
So
because
they are
because
not
they're missing out.
audacious.
Well,
Yeah, they
what's
are not.
happening is they're missing out on the real opportunity by
Yeah, they
labeling
are
you.
not audacious because like, of course it is that they have, okay, an older guy versus a younger guy, and they can hire three younger guys for the same price as me.
Right, right.
It's pure.
Yeah,
But how is it when you you I can sense from Toronto to here, I can sense your passion, and you are.
so
It's lovely to have some, like, you can feel the energy, and it's
thank
just
you.
amazing.
It's real. Well,
So
it
so
truly is
when
real.
you so when you speak to people, or especially because I think our young people, they need guys like us.
Yeah,
We need to hammer into their heads that they can be brave, they can be
right.
courageous, they can be all of these things.
I'm going to add. I'm going to add that they already have it inside of it. And that's why I started off by talking about the self awareness. Because if we
Yeah,
turn on that light switch and we say, and let's stay with the living room analogy for a second, okay?
yeah,
So you turn on that light switch. You now see the coffee table. Maybe you've got magazines on your coffee table. You can see what's there. The couch, and maybe you can decide, I don't want the couch against that wall. I want to move it over there, right? You now have the opportunity to rearrange stuff, and maybe when you move the couch from away from the wall, you see dust bunnies, and you can sweep them out and do some cleanup. So this is what we can do in our own lives. By turning on that light switch, we have the opportunity to make the necessary adjustments, to make the changes, to clean what's necessary, to restart even, right? But it starts with self-awareness. And so the message to young people is, hey, first and foremost, you already have it inside of you. I can tell you. I remember growing up, and wondering if I had enough. I had self doubt. Like, I didn't build my confidence. I didn't know that I could achieve great things, and that had to be developed. And the way you develop that is you trial and error, right? And the other
yeah.
thing that you do is you give yourself credit. So, for example, when someone, for those who know how to ride a bike, don't tell me that you got on the first time and you pedal and you're a bike racer. Maybe you fell down, maybe you skid your knees, maybe you but you got up and you tried again. Like the baby learning how to walk, you got up and tried again until you master the art of bike riding. Audacity is what allowed you to push forward to keep trying. So it's already in you.
But how can we get them to realize it? That, like, why? Because David Pushkin, he comes, oh, I love it when he participates. What part do you think societal pressure plays in blocking the power of audacity?
Huge, huge.
Because we why is it that we why is it and the world is just showing it in its the world is showing its ugly face, because if
Mm-hmm.
you are not like everybody else, then you can go and just go into the jungle or whatever,
Sure.
however they talk about. Like, why is it that we can't believe that we all are different and we all have something good to give?
So there are a bunch of reasons, not just one, and I'll talk about a few of them. First and foremost, there's fear. Okay, fear, and that in itself is an acronym: false evidence appearing real. We think that there's a lion around the corner, and so because that lion is around the corner, I'm not going to take that step forward. We don't know if anything's around the corner for sure, but we're afraid to, so we don't. And sometimes those fears, they're internal, but other times those fears come from other people. And so, how many times has someone given you some advice and say, "Yeah, I wouldn't do that because this would happen to me," and so I wouldn't, and it warn you against doing something because of their own set of circumstances. And not to say what they experienced wasn't real, but that was for them, not me. And I will never know until I step into this space. And so fear is a big one. Another one is false beliefs that we have. And I'll tell you a quick story. When I was a child, growing up in my home, I was raised in a single parent home. My mother she had a phenomenal job, and I had we used to go to church every Sunday. That was our family. We went to church every Sunday, and I used to have a special pair of church shoes I only could wear on Sundays. My Sunday shoes, and the reason why I was such a rambunctious kid, I would tear them up. I wouldn't have nothing nice to wear on Sundays. So she said, no, no, those are your Sunday shoes, okay? And that's how I grew up. My entire life, I grew up with Sunday shoes. I vividly remember I was in around the age of 40, and I still had Sunday shoes. I still had shoes I only wore on Sundays. And the reason why was because that's how my upbringing was. And I remember looking at them going, why can't I wear those on Tuesday or Saturday or Thursday, right? I restricted myself to Sunday because I carried this belief. Now let's be clear. That belief, it wasn't planted to do harm. It wasn't planted to hurt me in any way. It was planted at that time to protect me. But I went through life and I carried it with me. And I think that's what we do a lot of times in life, where we do things just because that's just the way it is. And we don't challenge, we don't question. But what we also don't realize is those things are holding us back. And so, the limiting beliefs are big. People, I totally respect and honor the trauma that exists in people's lives. Some people have some rough upbringings. They've gone through some terrible things. They carry that baggage with them as well as they move through life. And they don't think they have the permission to do great things. They don't think they're allowed to do great things. So they hold themselves back. So there are a whole variety of reasons. And I think for that, and so that's why I try as much as I possibly can to exercise some compassion, because the reasons are completely valid. And I'm not here to say, you were wrong to be afraid. You were wrong to have those limiting beliefs. You were wrong to let your trauma hold you back. I'm not here to say any of that. What I am here to say is, despite those things, you still need to find a way to move forward, because we're not meant to be stagnant in life.
But regarding the shoes, for me,
Yeah.
because I'm a social educator, and my belief is a kid is allowed to be a kid, and if the kid, like, there would be dirt on the shoes, and I don't think the guy upstairs, he would complain that
No, no.
like the young Audley would have a mud on
Dirty
his
shoes.
shoes.
No, absolutely.
It's just so that is more of a perception, isn't it, from other
It
people, how
absolutely is.
they judge.
It absolutely is. But what happens is we still make decisions based on those perceptions.
Yeah.
Right? And now we make life decisions based on those perceptions, right? And so I don't have Sunday shoes anymore. I have whatever I go to church in, those are the shoes I have on. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it, because there's nothing wrong with that. And so it's really, one of the things I encourage people to do is take stock of, and do that analysis of your own life. Look at the things that you hold on to. You know how sometimes you'll say, in this situation, I never do this, or I always do this, or I only do that. Look at those words, only, never, and always, and ask why. And keep digging as to why, to find if there's a real reason, or you're carrying around this belief that you're just holding on to, like my Sunday
But
shoes.
but I love it that you did not evolve the Sunday shoes to Monday shoes, Tuesdays, like
It could have. It could have.
I, and your wife would probably said, like, okay, Audley, we need to send you to a therapist. Now we have to
Too
talk
many
about
shoes.
these. We have to talk about these shoes, and yeah, but Monday they are always blue. They are always blue
That's
because
right. That's
Mondays
right.
are blue. But
That's
but
right.
how is it? Because the question or the topic, it is basically, uh, what does it actually take to be bold inside a life that was not designed
Wow.
for it? Because we we have this. We in Iceland, we have Björk. You know Björk, the musician.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Like, she is totally bonkers. Nobody in Iceland, they thought, like, oh, she is so weird, and like, we had this talk. But
Yeah.
then when she made it, when she became popular, oh, she was the best thing Iceland have ever
Sure.
produced,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
yada.
yeah, yeah,
You know why? And I guess that is the same because you are so proud of your actors, Ryan Reynolds, and like the sons of Canada, the daughters of
sure,
Canada, and whatnot.
sure, sure.
So, like the question, like, what does it actually take to be bold inside a life that was not designed for it? Because the key question, and you
Yeah,
mentioned it yourself. Well, I have been working here for 30 years, and we have always done it like this,
yeah.
and I like it. I am not going to change it.
So the question is, I would say, why? Why are you so adamant that doesn't change, right? So that's where I start. That's
Mm.
where I'd start. But I have the answer for you because through my work, I created and developed what I called the BOLD framework. The BOLD was a framework, is a four-letter acronym, BOLD, and it starts off the letter B. It's built on the concept of better than yesterday. It's very much about constant improvement, continuous improvement,
Yeah,
learning that
yeah.
you don't ever stop. So, for example, you climbed that mountain yesterday, and I'm so proud of you. That was a huge accomplishment, a wonderful feat. But guess what? There's a bigger one tomorrow that you can go after. So it's outdoing what you did the day before and never resting or settling on your laurels of the victories. So that's fantastic that when you were 12 years old, you won your Little League championship. But when you're a 40-year-old man, that doesn't have the same level of significance because there's more that could be done. And so better than yesterday is about constantly outdoing yourself. The O in that framework stands for outlast adversity. And this is huge because in life, we all have challenges. We all have struggles. We all face certain setbacks. We can't escape this thing called life. Now, for those who are audacious enough to fight past the certainty to get to the other side, their reward is their greatness because on the other side of any sort of challenge, struggle is greatness. And when I say greatness, I'm not talking about riches, monetary wealth, cars. That's not the greatness I'm talking about. The greatness is your evolution because regardless of what you go through, regardless of what your challenge is, and once you get to the other side, you're better for it. You've got the experience, you got the insights, you've got the knowledge, and you've got the fortitude as well as the resilience to push forward. So when it comes again, you're like, I got this. Please cake. I solved this yesterday. So outlasting adversity is huge. The L in that framework is live your truth. This is directly tied into being authentic. Having the authenticity is key in this because I can't live my own audacious life where I'm trying to copy someone else because it can't be sustained. I've got to live my life that was designed for me. And oftentimes, we see this oftentimes, we'll look at other people, we look to our left or right, and we want what they have. And not that we can't have what they have, but we have to understand it has to be tailored for who we are. So, for example, if you're wearing a really nice suit, and I like that suit, I'm going to get that suit. Guess what? That suit is in your size. I got to get the one that's in my size.
Yeah.
So, what's meant for me. So, live your truth is key. And the last letter, which is something we touched on earlier, the D stands for disrupt the norm. We talked about inventors and Edison and Steve Jobs. They disrupted the norm. They went off the beaten path. They tried something different. They weren't trying to be like everyone else. They recognized, yeah, those things are out there, but I can do better. I can do more. I can achieve greater in a different direction. I can be my own trailblazer. And if you stop and think about it, every single person that's created something, invented something, created something that's been of aid to society and that we use and we're so happy it exists, they didn't follow what other people did. Maybe they took something from the other people did, but they enhanced it and made it better. And so disrupting the norm is key. You've got to go off the beaten path. And so I truly believe that, if you're in that learning mode, you're fighting through your challenges, you're willing to be your own self, and you understand that you've got to walk on a path that's different from anyone else, that's how you can live your best audacious life.
I just thought about the Wright brothers, the first
Them
two.
too.
Sorry.
Imagine. No problem. Uh, Imagine the crowd of people who watch them and they're like, flying is for the birds. What are you doing? You can't do this. And now flying is an integral part of our existence.
Mm.
Well, if they were to succumb and believe and accept all the things, the negative things that they were told, we wouldn't be flying today to the degree that, or maybe we would, but they wouldn't be attributed to it the way that they are.
So, because now we have 15 minutes left, because time flies when you're having fun. And
Absolutely.
you mentioned that bold. You have these four letters. Are they? Because now I want to show people your website, and
Yes,
it's
it
underneath
is.
pictures of it. So
Wonderful.
www.bestaudaciouslife.com. So do
Got it.
they find this description boldness
Absolutely,
there?
absolutely. I've got a philosophy tab on my website. There's a number of different things that are there, but the bold framework is sort of the signature one because I think that really that encapsulates what living your best audacious life is. And I want to also, there's one other piece I think is so important in all this, and I want to make sure we touch on before we wrap up here is when we individually, you mentioned earlier. You mentioned earlier my book, and my book is entitled "Living Your Best Audacious Life." And the subtitle is, for me, I have so much pride in it because the subtitle says "How Unleashing Your Inner Greatness Can Change the World." I truly believe that if I am stepping into my audacious self, not knowing what the outcome is going to be, not sure if I'm even making the right move, but I'm doing it anyways, I have the ability to inspire others to do the same. I have them the permission to follow their dreams, go after what they were chasing, think differently than they did before. I told you about my friend who was a corporate accountant, right? And so she had heard of someone, like I said, she had heard of someone that was in the same situation, and they left and went to this new field. Well, much like when you, and as you said, you're shitting your pants, much like you were shitting your pants, I'm sure that person also was very afraid and uncertain and didn't know if it was the right move, but they did it anyways. And it's so impactful that my friend, and by the way, she doesn't know this person personally. She only heard about her story. So we don't even have to know the people that are inspiring us, but she heard about this person. That person inspired her so much that she told me the story, and I'm finding equal inspiration from that. And now I'm sharing that with you on your platform, and we don't know this person, and that's where I'm talking, and that's how we change the world because now we're inspiring each other, and all we're doing is just by doing our actions. I can promise you, this woman, when I've referred to her many times, I don't know who she is. I don't need to know who she is. But I can promise you, many times that she doubted herself and she had no idea she was making the right move, but she did it anyways, and she's an inspiration, whether we know her or not.
But how? But it is also the thing that when people, okay, we are born, and then the parents, they have great ideas, and
Yes.
they want us to become. They want us to become. I was studying to become a social educator in Denmark,
Yep.
and one of the missions was that I had to spend 3 months in a kindergarten. And my wife was at that time finishing her teaching degree here in Iceland. And she visited me. She came back and she told my father that I was working in a kindergarten. And then around midnight, the telephone like rang in the dorm. And I was just like, oh, this can only be one person. So that was just ran. What is it that your wife is telling me? And I was like, well, you have to tell me because there is an ocean between us and England and like a whole lot of distance. And
Right.
then he finally said, is it true that you are working in a kindergarten? Yes, I said. You can go inside your room, he said, and pack your things and you will go home tomorrow. You will come home
Mm,
tomorrow.
mm.
My reaction was, do you know what? In 20 years, if I am still working in a kindergarten, I will be happy and most likely you will be dead. but he did not die in 20 years, so he stayed a little bit longer. No, but and I said, like, but then I worked with the like people with schizophrenia and stuff, and
Yep.
he walked around like, and that was, yeah, he's working with the, and I was just like,
Yes.
are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, does
That's
it
right.
matter? Like, it is just like bonkers. And then, and many of your stories, people who are becoming, uh, yes, business people, da 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 da,
Yep.
and then they quit, and then they become ceramist
Yep.
because that
That-
was what they wanted.
That's right. That's right. That's
But
right.
not
That's
take
exactly it.
away, yeah. But we can't take away the experience, because then at a certain moment you just like, I can't do this anymore.
And nor do we want to take away the experience. I think
No, no.
I truly believe that we are where we are as a result of a collection of experiences. And so my experiences allowed me to be a commissioner of a basketball league because I was involved with the NBA, because I had some podcasting experience, because I love the game of basketball, because I've done work professionally in the basketball space. Those experiences all helped me to get me to that next level. And it's funny there's a saying I oftentimes use that, when you live life forward, it's an art. But when you stop and look back, it's a science. And so when I stopped and looked back, I could see where all the dots connected. If I didn't go
Yeah.
here to go here, I didn't go there, I didn't go there. And if I didn't do this, I wouldn't. And all of it I can lead it back here, because if I didn't do all those things, you and I wouldn't be talking now.
Yeah, well, yes. But tell me more about the book. Why you, we were talking about when we met that the book would be out now.
Yes,
So
yes.
what happened? Did the letters
So
fall
what?
out of the book?
Yeah. So what happened was I was excited, very excited about my book. I had completed the manuscript, and at that time I was on the path. I was going to self-publish a book, and I was excited about it. And there was by happenstance, I met a publisher that agreed to publish my book, and I was excited at that opportunity. I'm now have a chance to go worldwide through their distribution network, Morgan James Publisher, and I didn't see it coming. But one of the things that would come into play was my timelines had to be adjusted to fit with their publishing timelines, which I was totally happy with, because I think it's a wonderful partnership. And so, a little bit more patience, but I'm very, very excited about when it comes out in the fall.
So I love the title, Living Your Best Audacious Life Ever, How Unleashing Your Inner Greatness Can Change the World. So your passion, as I am perceiving it, is that in the book? Do I have to listen to it?
Oh,
Or
you
or do I have to put
you
myself in
feel
the footstep of Audley and
you
be,
feel you feel the passion of my book. So what's really nice about this book is, are there frameworks in there? For sure. I talk about the Bold framework, and I talk about different things that I created. I talk about, again, when you have 650 podcast guests, there's lots and lots of insights that I bring in from my podcast. There's lots and lots of that. But also I tell some really personal stories, some personal stories of adversity and challenge and learnings. One of the stories that I tell, I share a story about my father. When my parents emigrated to Canada from Jamaica, and when they arrived here, I was born shortly thereafter. Unfortunately, things didn't work out between my parents and I, and they split up. And so the last time I saw my father, I was 6 months old. That was the last time I saw him. And fast forward, I become a father. My daughter is 6 months old, and he suddenly reappears in my life on the verge of looking out for his long lost son. Now, the one thing that I've always said is that when I grew up, I was my mother was just she's 83 years, an amazing woman. So I didn't feel like I lacked. I didn't feel like I didn't have love or support or all the things that children need. I had all those things. So
uh,
I wasn't missing anything. And I actually many times have said that I've learned lots of things from him, from my father, from both his absence as well as his presence. His presence encouraged me to be an active, engaged, and present father. And by his absence, I knew what I wanted for myself and for my children. his presence also taught me something very interesting as well too. It taught me that it's never too late. How many times do we say, you know what? Too much time has passed. There's too much water under the bridge. Why bother? Just forget about it. Well, he didn't. He didn't take that approach. He wanted to find me. Now, the one of the things that I found out shortly thereafter is he was facing his own mortality. And so part of his motivation for finding me is that he knew he didn't have much time left to live. And so I had in that moment, I had to make a decision. Do I accept this man for who he is, or do I hold on to the resentment and the anger and stuff that, well, I didn't have anger growing up, so there was no resentment. And so I did accept him with open arms. And we had about 3 years where we developed a relationship. It wasn't typical father-son, but we developed a relationship. And then he passed away. And I feel very, very happy and fulfilled with that chapter of my life, because not only was I able to close it, right, I understood it. I also felt that in his last days, I was also able to give him some fulfillment. And quite frankly, if you really think about it for a second, think about this. The act of showing up, looking for a son who you have no idea how to respond, you have no idea how to receive you, you have no idea if he's angry or bitter, but you reach out anyways. That's audacious. That's a very audacious. And so for me, when I take a step back and look, the roots of audacity, that's why I say they've always been there. My parents are audacious. They've always been there. And when you start to recognize, you're like, oh, okay. And so you have no choice but to continue living that same way as well, because it's a part of you. So I say all that to say that's one of the stories in my book, plus others too.
But that is also, it starts way back, because moving from Jamaica to Canada, that's
Absolutely.
a huge step. That's a huge step.
Absolutely.
But because we only have 2 minutes and I have to talk about next episode, I have one question. What happened to Dave Mendonca?
He's still my buddy. Dave Mendonca's still kicking around. He's still doing his things. He's a big TikToker now these days, and he loves TikTok, and he's always doing stuff. And so, and he's still, to this day, he's still a good friend of mine. I actually owe him a call. We need to get together to meet up again. But Dave's still kicking around.
Wait a minute. He must be old. Like, he's not on TikTok. That is just young people. I hope he will not listen to this podcast.
I'll let him know that you meant it, and all good. It was all goodness he meant it. No problem.
But it has been fantastic. So people who want to find you, of course, there is the website. And you have some frameworks and it's beautiful. It's loads of stuff.
Thank you.
And the podcasts. Like, don't forget the podcast. And www.bestaudaciouslife.com, and just people visit it and check Audley's stuff. And then I think they can find you on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, yes, X, and Instagram.
You got it.
So, and people I will tell people, find him, connect with him, and your life will be audacious.
Thank you. I would say it already is audacious. You just don't know it yet. And yes. I'm going to help you.
Yes. So, and then of course follow, like, we have to, I will be waiting for your book, because good books, like, it's fun to, I listen to books because I fall asleep when I read books. That's not good. It's hard to be 29 plus. It's hard to be 29 plus.
Oh, my friend.
Thank you very much. But I just want to mention to people that next week, May 28th, I will be talking to Keith Cooperman, and we are going to talk about calm until it isn't, what disaster zones teach us about how organizations actually function. He has been involved with the Red Cross organization, and he has been in loads of situations where, like, I can't imagine what he has not done. But there are always curious people here, like I'm talking to. So, and Audley, you are my new hero, and I look forward to your book, and I can feel your presence, I can feel your power, And just as I mentioned, always like be curious, be interested, be inspired. And I think I will
And be
add
audacious. Add
be
be
audacious.
audacious.
Yes, so I will add that. So, but thank you for this hour. It has
I
been
appreciate it.
absolutely brilliant, brilliant.
Thank you. I appreciate the time. All the best.